The interstellar shuttle glided silently through the upper atmosphere of Earth, its silver hull reflecting the soft blue curve of the planet below. Inside the passenger section sat dozens of alien students from many worlds, but one of them, a young researcher named Rylva of Tau Ceti Prime, was both excited and nervous. This was her first visit to Earth, and she had heard that humans were a very unusual species. Rylva's skin shimmered faint green under the shuttle lights, and her four eyes blinked in different rhythms as she checked her digital notebook. Her translator chip whispered information in her head. Planet Earth, home of the human species. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. Multiple biomes. High adaptability. She repeated the phrase softly. High adaptability. Let's see how true that is. Rylva came from a world where life was organized and predictable. Every species on Tau Ceti Prime followed the same biological rhythm, the mating cycle. For her people, reproduction was possible only once every 20 years, during the great season of renewal. Outside that season, no one even thought about such things. It was part of the natural order. Now she was traveling to a world where life seemed chaotic and unstructured. Humans, from what she had read, had no defined cycle at all. They were active, curious, emotional, and extremely unpredictable. She couldn't understand how such a species could survive, let alone build a civilization that reached the stars. As the shuttle touched down at Galactic University's Earth Branch campus, Rylva took a deep breath, or at least the Tau Cetian version of one. The air was rich with oxygen and humidity. Students of all kinds walked around. Insectoids from Carthon, avians from Valari, aquatic beings from Nemos, and humans. Everywhere, the humans looked so plain to her at first. Only two eyes, no bright colors, smooth skin. Yet they smiled and laughed more than any species she had seen. They carried their bags, talked quickly, and seemed to enjoy everything they did. Rylva found herself watching them with silent curiosity. After registration, she was assigned to the Department of Comparative Xenobiology, where she would study the differences in reproduction and adaptation among galactic species. Her academic mentor, Professor Yurn of Carthon, handed her a small tablet with her research assignment. "Your field study," he said, his mandibles clicking softly, "will focus on human reproductive biology. Your subject will be an Earth native named Ethan Clark, a student of mechanical engineering. He has volunteered to assist." Rylva blinked in surprise. "Humans? I thought I'd be studying something more complex." The professor gave a short insectoid chuckle. "You'll find them very complex indeed." The next morning she met Ethan for the first time. He was waiting near the campus greenhouse, sitting on a bench under a tall tree. He looked up when she approached and waved with a friendly smile. "Hey there, you must be Rylva. Professor Yurn told me you'd be working with me." Rylva nodded politely. "Yes, you are the human subject assigned to my study." Ethan laughed. "You make it sound like I'm part of an experiment." "You are," she said simply, holding her notebook. "But don't worry. It's only academic observation." Her translator made her tone sound flat, but Ethan didn't mind. He seemed used to aliens by now. "So, what do you need to know?" he asked. "I need to understand how your species manages reproduction without a mating season," Rylva said, eyes narrowing with curiosity. "I read your data, but it makes no sense. You appear to have no fixed biological cycle." Ethan looked confused. "Mating season? Humans don't really have one." Rylva tilted her head. "Impossible. All advanced species have a defined reproductive cycle. Without it, how do you regulate population growth or ensure genetic health?" Ethan shrugged. "We don't need a season. Humans can have children any time of the year." Rylva froze. Her four eyes blinked one after another. "Any time?" "Yeah," Ethan said casually as if it were nothing. "All the time, really. Depends on choice, not biology." For a moment, Rylva's brain refused to process the information. She rechecked her translator chip, wondering if it mistranslated something. She spoke again carefully. "So you mean your species remains fertile continuously? There is no dormancy period?" Ethan nodded. "That's right." Rylva stared at him, her notebook hovering slightly as her fingers trembled. "That is biologically illogical. Continuous fertility requires enormous energy. It would exhaust the body, cause imbalance, disrupt hormonal systems." Ethan laughed again. "Humans are weird like that, I guess. We adapt." Later that day, Rilva sat alone in the university library, still shocked. She had checked multiple scientific databases, human biology records, medical archives, evolutionary papers, and all said the same thing. Human males were fertile at all times. There was no season, no universal biological limit. Even females had unpredictable fertility cycles compared to most species. How can a species survive like this? She muttered to herself. No timing, no structure, just constant potential. To her, it was chaos. But the data was clear. Humans had evolved differently. Their environment, perhaps their emotional system, had shaped them into something completely unique. She decided to observe more closely. Over the next few weeks, she followed Ethan and other human students during daily life. They studied, played sports, shared meals, and discussed things she couldn't imagine being related to survival, like art, music, and friendship. What fascinated her most was how emotionally driven they were. Their behavior wasn't ruled by instinct alone. They acted by choice, by desire to connect, to care, to learn. Rilva began to write in her research notes. Human reproductive biology appears to be directly connected to their emotional complexity. Their continuous fertility is supported by strong psychological and social bonds. This may explain their adaptability and expansion as a species. But she still couldn't fully believe it. So she scheduled another interview with Ethan. The next day, they met in the student lab. Ethan was working on a robotic drone while she set up her scanner. Ethan, she said seriously, I need to confirm something. Your species truly has no universal rest period for reproductive ability. None that I know of, he said. Humans are kind of always ready. But that doesn't mean we're always doing it. We make choices. Choices? Rilva repeated. So your biology gives you constant potential, but you control it consciously? Exactly, Ethan said. It's one of the reasons we spread so fast across the galaxy. We can adapt to any environment, build families anywhere. Our emotions guide us, not just biology. Rilva paused. That sounds powerful, Ethan smiled. That's humans for you. That evening, Rilva wrote a message to her mentor. Preliminary finding. Human reproductive systems defy known biological logic. Male fertility remains constant. Emotional and social intelligence appear to act as regulating mechanisms. Hypothesis. Their lack of mating season may be a key factor in their survival and rapid expansion as a species. Professor Yearn replied a few hours later with a simple message. Your data must be incorrect. Verify immediately. No species can maintain such constant fertility without self-destructing. Rilva read the message and sighed. Then I must prove it, she whispered. She looked out her dorm window at the humans below, laughing, running, living with energy that never seemed to end. Maybe her professor was wrong. Maybe humans had discovered a balance that no other species could achieve. In that moment, Rilva realized that this study might change more than just her academic record. It could change how the galaxy understood what it meant to be alive, and what it meant to be human. Rilva woke early the next morning, still unable to believe what she had learned from her human classmate Ethan Clark. She sat at her desk surrounded by floating data screens. Each one showed the same result. Human males, continuous fertility. No defined mating cycle. It went against everything she had been taught in xenobiology. Every intelligent species known to the Galactic Council had a reproductive rhythm. There were mating seasons, rest periods, hibernation cycles, and something that allowed balance. But humans ignored every rule of nature. She tapped her notes impatiently. This cannot be correct, she muttered. It must be an error in their genome data. Still, the evidence was there. Human history showed consistent reproduction throughout all climates and ages. From frozen tundras to desert colonies, they kept growing, adapting, and surviving. Rilva sighed, rubbing the sides of her head. Either they are miracle beings, she said softly, or total biological madness. At the university cafeteria later that day, Rilva met with Ethan again. He was already sitting at a table, eating something that steamed and smelled of spices. What are you consuming? She asked curiously. Breakfast burrito, Ethan said with a grin. Want to try one? She shook her head quickly. Your food is too unpredictable, he laughed. Just like humans, huh? Rilva ignored the joke and sat down. Ethan, I rechecked your species biology. Everything matches what you told me yesterday. You are indeed fertile all year long. No breaks. No cycles. Yep, Ethan said, biting into his food. That's just how we are. Rilva leaned closer. How can that be sustainable? Wouldn't that cause overpopulation, resource strain, or health imbalance? Ethan shrugged. We manage it with choice. We don't always act on instinct. We plan, we decide. That's the difference between intelligence and instinct. Rilva frowned thoughtfully. Choice is a biological regulator. That's strange. Most species rely on nature's control, not their own minds. Ethan smiled. Well, humans like being in control. Sometimes too much. She studied him silently for a moment. His casual attitude both fascinated and confused her. Humans acted as if breaking biological laws was normal. Later that week, Rilva decided to test her findings with other students. She organized a small group discussion with alien biology majors, 4 insectoids from Carthon, 2 avians from Valari, and a silvery-skinned aquatic being from Nemos. They gathered in a study room filled with holographic displays. Rilva began her presentation confidently. My study focuses on human reproductive biology and species adaptability. During my interviews and data research, I discovered something quite unexpected. The group leaned forward curiously. Humans, Rilva continued, do not possess a defined mating season. They are fertile throughout the year, and their reproductive systems remain continuously active. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then one of the Carthon insectoids hissed in disbelief. Impossible! No species can remain in such a state. It would drain their life energy. The Valari avian student tilted her head. Maybe you misunderstood their terminology. Perhaps they define fertility differently? Rilva shook her head. No, I confirmed it with a living subject and with medical databases. Human males produce reproductive cells constantly, without rest. Females have independent cycles not tied to planetary seasons. The room filled with murmurs and confused clicking sounds. The aquatic student from Nemos bubbled softly in her translator. That would mean humans could reproduce anytime on any world? Yes, Rilva said simply. That is exactly what it means. One Carthon student laughed nervously. That cannot be real. If true, humanity would have flooded the galaxy by now. Ethan, who had been invited to the discussion, smiled from the corner of the room. Well, we kinda did, didn't we? There are human colonies everywhere. The aliens turned to look at him, eyes wide. Rilva raised a hand to calm them. He speaks truth. Humanity has colonized hundreds of worlds, often in environments unfit for other species. Their adaptability is unmatched. The Valari avian folded her wings thoughtfully. Perhaps this constant fertility is part of their adaptability. A genetic safety net. Rilva nodded. Exactly my hypothesis. It may allow them to recover quickly from disasters or population loss. The insectoid student still looked disturbed. Still, that is unnatural. Uncontrolled reproduction, constant potential. How can they remain civilized? Ethan chuckled. Because we don't let biology control us. We use technology, culture, and emotion to decide what happens. Rilva watched her classmates' faces as confusion turned to respect. For the first time, she felt that her discovery might be bigger than she realized. After the meeting, Rilva returned to her dorm and began typing her formal report. The more she wrote, the more amazed she became. She included examples of human adaptability, how they survived ice ages, colonized space, and even thrived on barren moons. Her main conclusion was bold. Human reproductive potential reflects their mental resilience. They have evolved not only to survive but to decide their own limits. When she finished, she sent the draft to her mentor, Professor Yearn. A few days later, she received his response. His message was brief but sharp. Student Rilva, your data cannot be correct. Verify your sources. No known organism sustains constant reproductive activity without collapse. You are advised to check your equipment and recalibrate your biological sensors. Rilva frowned. He doesn't believe me. Ethan, sitting across the lab, looked up. Who doesn't believe you? My professor, she said. He thinks I made a mistake, Ethan grinned. Then let's prove him wrong. Over the next week, they worked together to gather undeniable proof. Rilva used human medical scans, population records, and physiological readings. She even interviewed several professors from the Earth Biology department, who confirmed her data. Every answer led to the same conclusion. Humans were always ready to reproduce. but rarely ruled by instinct. It wasn't just about fertility. It was about control, emotion, and willpower. She added a new note to her report. Humans have replaced biological control with mental and social control. Their minds serve as regulators for biological functions that would otherwise overwhelm most species. When she read it aloud, Ethan nodded proudly. That's a fancy way of saying we're stubborn. Rilva smiled faintly. Yes, stubbornness seems to be your most dominant gene. A few days later, Rilva presented her findings in her advanced xenobiology class. The room was filled with alien students and her mentor, Professor Yearn, who listened with folded limbs. Rilva spoke clearly. Humanity's lack of a mating season is not an error of biology, but an achievement of evolution. Their continuous fertility allows adaptability beyond any species we know. She showed charts, holograms, and even short interviews from human scientists explaining how emotion and intellect influence reproduction. When she finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Professor Yearn spoke, his voice thoughtful. Rilva, what you describe is extraordinary, but it changes the foundation of xenobiology. Are you prepared to defend such a claim before the Galactic Research Council? Rilva straightened proudly. Yes, Professor, because I have seen it with my own eyes. Humans are proof that reason can rule over biology. Ethan smiled from the back row, giving her a small thumbs up. The professor's mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of reluctant admiration. Very well. Prepare your presentation. The council meets next week. You may have discovered something that will rewrite our understanding of life itself. That night, as Rilva walked under the glowing sky of Earth, she watched the human students laughing near the dorms. Their voices filled the air with warmth and life. She thought of all the species she knew, logical, disciplined, predictable, and realized that humans were different not because of chaos, but because of freedom. They had no season, no boundaries. They lived every day as if it mattered, and that, she thought, was what made them so strong. Rilva whispered softly to herself, perhaps this is why humans reached the stars while others waited for nature's permission. Her report was ready, and her journey into the mystery of humanity had only begun. The Galactic Science Conference was just 1 week away, and Rilva had never felt so nervous in her entire academic life. Every year, students from dozens of worlds presented their discoveries to the greatest scientists in the galaxy. Winning recognition there could change a student's future, or destroy their reputation completely. And she was about to stand in front of that audience and say something no alien had ever dared to claim. Humans have no mating season. Inside the university's biology lab, Rilva reviewed her notes for the 1,000th time. Charts floated in the air around her, diagrams of human anatomy, population graphs, and quotes from human scientists. Each glowing panel confirmed her discovery. Still, she wasn't confident. Every fact looked unbelievable through alien eyes. To most of the galaxy, humans already seemed strange, emotional, fearless, and unpredictable. But this was beyond imagination. Her classmate and research partner, Ethan Clark, walked into the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. You've been up all night again, haven't you? He asked, smiling. Rilva didn't look up. I cannot rest. The more I study your species, the less sense it makes. You truly defy all natural systems. Ethan laughed. That's kind of our thing. He handed her the coffee. Drink, it helps you think faster. Rilva sniffed it carefully. Caffeine, stimulant. She took a cautious sip. Strange taste, but useful. Ethan leaned against a table. So what part are you struggling with? She turned her 4 eyes toward him. Everything. Your biology, your psychology. You live without rhythm or rest, yet you build cities, explore galaxies, and still find time to make art. How do you survive without structure? Ethan grinned. We make our own structure. We choose what matters. Rilva blinked slowly. Choice again. Always this word. Yeah, Ethan said. It's what being human means. Later that day, they took a break outside the university dome. The Earth sky glowed orange with sunset, and the air smelled of grass and warm soil. Rilva watched human students playing a game on the field, running, shouting, laughing. They looked so alive. They act without reason, Rilva murmured. Even when not studying or working, they keep moving. Ethan smiled. We get bored easily. Bored? Yeah, Doing nothing drives us crazy. Rilva tilted her head, fascinated. So even rest is tiring to you? Ethan laughed. Exactly. She made a quick note on her tablet. Observation. Humans exhibit continuous motion, possibly linked to emotional cycles. Hypothesis. Mental restlessness compensates for biological stability. Ethan looked over her shoulder. That's fancy talk for we don't like sitting still. Rilva gave a soft trill, her species' version of a laugh. You are a strange species, Ethan Clark, and proud of it, he said. When Rilva returned to her dorm later that evening, she found dozens of messages waiting on her console. Most were from alien classmates who had heard rumors about her research. Is it true humans breed without seasons? How can that be possible? Are you sure you understood their biology correctly? Rilva sighed. Some messages even sounded offended. Many alien species viewed their mating seasons as sacred parts of life, spiritual, symbolic, deeply tied to identity. The idea of living without such a rhythm sounded unnatural, but Rilva couldn't back down. She had data, proof, and logic. Still, she decided to gather more perspective, not from science, but from humans themselves. The next day, she met with Professor Lin, a senior human biologist at the university. The professor was kind, gray-haired, and curious about Rilva's research. So, Professor Lin said, "You're the one causing all the excitement in the xenobiology department?" Rilva nodded. "I did not intend to cause disturbance. I only seek truth." "That's the best reason," the professor said. "Ask away." Rilva looked at her notes. "Why does your species remain fertile constantly? It seems wasteful. Wouldn't a mating season be more efficient?" Professor Lin smiled. "Perhaps. But humans evolved in many different climates, forests, deserts, ice fields. Having a fixed season could have been dangerous. If one storm or famine came during that time, the species might vanish." Rilva listened carefully. "So your flexibility was survival?" "Exactly," the professor said. "Nature gave us adaptability instead of timing." Rilva typed the words quickly. "Adaptability instead of timing." Professor Lin continued. "Later, when we became more intelligent, we learned to use our minds to guide our biology. We built systems, medicine, ethics, families, that balanced instinct with reason. It made us free." Rilva looked thoughtful. "Free from nature itself." "Not free from it," Lin corrected gently, "but free enough to shape it." Those words echoed in Rilva's mind long after she left the meeting. Humans had not escaped nature. They had learned to cooperate with it. That night, Rilva and Ethan prepared her visual presentation for the conference. She arranged slides showing evolutionary diagrams, emotional behavior models, and cross-species comparisons. At one point, Ethan noticed she had labeled a section biological chaos. "Hey," he said, laughing, "maybe use a softer word than chaos. We prefer creative freedom." Rilva smiled slightly. "You would." As they worked late into the night, they began talking about how different species saw the world. "In your culture," Ethan asked, "what happens during your mating season?" Rilva thought for a moment. "Everything slows. Work stops. The whole world celebrates new life. It is peaceful, predictable, and emotional." "Sounds beautiful," Ethan said softly. "It is," she agreed, "but it is also limiting. Outside that season, we do not think about creation or growth. It is as if part of our mind sleeps." Ethan nodded. "That's the difference. Humans don't stop creating it, not just life, but ideas, stories, inventions. We're always fertile in a way." Rilva stared at him. "Fertile minds." "That is a poetic thought." "Thanks," Ethan said with a grin. "We're good at those." Finally, the day of the conference arrived. The grand hall of the Galactic Science Council was enormous, filled with thousands of beings from across the stars. Some hovered in water tanks, some had wings. Some glowed faintly under the lights. Holographic banners floated above them, celebrating knowledge beyond worlds. Rilva stood backstage, her heart racing. She looked at Ethan, who stood beside her as her assistant. "Do not let me faint," she whispered. Ethan chuckled. "You'll be fine. Just tell them what you told me." She nodded. "Yes, the truth." When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage. The audience quieted as she began. "Respected beings of the Galactic Council," she said clearly. "My research concerns one of the most misunderstood species in the galaxy, humans," several alien scholars murmured. Rilva continued, showing her first slide. As most of you know, reproduction across species follows natural cycles. But humans are an exception. Their fertility remains active throughout their lifetime. They have no mating season. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some thought it was a joke. Others looked skeptical. Rilva didn't flinch. She activated her next slide. Data, charts, medical scans, and interviews. This is not error, it is fact. Humans have evolved to maintain constant reproductive potential, controlled not by instinct but by will. Silence fell. She explained how emotional intelligence and adaptability replaced biological timing. She showed how human civilization thrived by balancing choice and nature. Finally, she concluded, their constant fertility is not a flaw. It is a symbol of their spirit, endless, adaptable, and alive. Humans are not bound by nature's schedule because they choose their own. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, one alien scholar began to clap. Another joined and another. The hall filled with applause. Ethan grinned from the sidelines. Rilva smiled shyly and bowed. In that moment, she knew she had done something historic. After the session, dozens of alien scientists approached her with questions. Some still doubted, but many were fascinated. The Volari avian researcher said, "Perhaps we were too arrogant. We thought discipline was strength. But maybe freedom is another form of it." Rilva nodded. "Yes, humans taught me that balance." Ethan patted her shoulder. "Told you we'd shock the galaxy," she laughed softly. "Indeed you have." As they walked out of the hall together, Rilva looked at the stars beyond the glass dome. Humanity had already reached many of those lights, and now she finally understood why. Humans did not wait for permission. Not from nature, not from destiny. They created their own seasons. The Galactic Science Hall was packed. Thousands of alien scholars, researchers, and dignitaries had gathered for the annual Council of Advanced Lifeforms, where the greatest discoveries in the galaxy were debated. Rilva's palms felt sweaty as she walked toward the podium. Her presentation last week had shocked everyone, some with laughter, others with disbelief. Now she would face the final test, defending her discovery in a live debate against the most respected xenobiologists in the galaxy. Beside her, Ethan Clark gave her a reassuring nod. "Just tell them what you've seen. Nothing can argue with facts." Rilva inhaled, her 4 eyes scanning the massive audience. Her translator chip flickered as multiple languages, clicks, and hums filled the hall. It was the largest gathering of species she had ever seen, all eager to challenge her claim. The moderator, a tall, silver-skinned being from the Andorian cluster, tapped the microphone with 3 fingers. "We will now hear from student Rilva of Tau Ceti Prime, who claims that human males remain fertile without a mating season. You have the floor, student." Rilva stepped forward and began. "Respected council members, I present evidence of an extraordinary species, humans. Unlike all species known to the Galactic Council, human males remain fertile continuously. They have no defined mating season. Their reproductive potential is not dictated by instinct alone, but regulated by mental and emotional choice." A murmur passed through the audience. One elder scholar, a reptilian biologist from Zorath Prime, hissed, "You claim an organism can remain fertile without exhausting its body? That is absurd. It would die from biological stress." Rilva remained calm. "My data confirms it is possible. Humans have evolved mechanisms that allow continuous fertility. They are physically resilient, but their true advantage lies in their intelligence and emotional control. They regulate biological processes consciously and socially, not just instinctively." A few audience members clicked their mandibles in disbelief. "Conscious control of reproduction? Preposterous," muttered a Carthon insectoid. Ethan stepped to her side. "If I may," he said, "I've lived with humans all my life. I've seen their families, communities, and colonies. I've watched them adapt to deserts, ice moons, and zero-gravity stations. Their ability to thrive is proof of their unique biology and mental discipline." The hall went silent. Rilva activated the holographic displays. Diagrams of human anatomy, DNA sequences, and population growth charts lit the room. She showed short video interviews of human scientists explaining how emotional intelligence and rational planning influence reproductive timing. "This is not fiction," she said firmly. "This is biology. Humans are never constrained by instinct alone. They are self-directed, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary growth because of this." Several alien scientists whispered among themselves. One Volari avian muttered, If this is true, we underestimated them. The Zarathian reptile scoffed. Intelligence cannot override biology. There must be a flaw in your data. Rylva shook her head. No flaw. My subject, Ethan Clark, represents a typical human male. Medical and historical records confirm this across the species. She paused, letting the room absorb the information. In short, humans succeed because they are not limited by the natural cycles that constrain most species. Their strength lies in choice, creativity, and relentless adaptability. A council member from the oceanic world of Nemos stood up. So you are saying they never stop being ready to reproduce? Yes, Rylva said. They are never idle, physically, mentally, or socially. Their species is always prepared to continue, create, and adapt. The audience gasped. Some laughed nervously. Others leaned forward, intrigued. The reptilian biologist's scales rattled in disbelief. Another member, a telepathic being from Viral, whispered into the moderator's earpiece. This species could colonize worlds faster than any known civilization. Their biology defies our expectations. Rylva nodded subtly, her mind racing. This was exactly what she wanted. A full discussion with questions and challenges. Then came the toughest challenge. A senior xenobiologist from the Andorian cluster, known for her sharp criticisms, rose. Her voice echoed in the hall. Student Rylva, your claim is extraordinary. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Can you explain how continuous fertility does not lead to overpopulation or collapse of ecosystems? Rylva took a deep breath. Yes, humans do not act purely on instinct. Their society, technology, and culture guide reproduction. They use medicine, ethics, and social planning to maintain balance. Their biological readiness does not mean reckless reproduction. They combine biology with intelligence, which allows sustainability. Ethan added, think of it like this. Humans can reproduce any time, but they choose when it is appropriate. We build families, plan resources, and support our communities. Nature gave us potential, but our minds manage it. The council chamber fell silent. Then a murmur of laughter spread. Some alien delegates whispered, do they choose when to reproduce? How strange, Rylva smiled faintly. Strange, yes. But also effective? Humans have thrived on countless worlds while others struggle to maintain a single colony. Their ability to act freely, guided by intellect and emotion, makes them resilient. The Volari avian stood and clicked her wings. Perhaps we were wrong. We see discipline as strength, but humans show that freedom can also be strength. The Carthon insectoids muttered among themselves. Still skeptical, Rylva presented her final slide, a timeline of human colonization, from Earth to the outer solar systems. She highlighted how their population adapted to extreme climates, zero gravity, and harsh environments. Their continuous fertility and conscious choice, she said, enabled expansion, survival, and innovation. By the end of her presentation, the hall was unusually quiet. Then slowly applause began. One alien researcher stood and clapped, then another, then dozens more. Within moments, the entire council was applauding, some with curiosity, some with admiration, some with shock. Ethan whispered to Rylva, see, told you. Humans shocked the galaxy. She smiled, a mixture of pride and relief washing over her. She had defended her research successfully. The moderator tapped the microphone. This council recognizes the significance of student Rylva's work. Humanity's biology is unique, and their adaptability is a model for understanding potential across life forms. Henceforth, humans shall be regarded as the tireless species. The hall erupted in whispers and excitement. Several alien scholars jotted notes rapidly, clearly considering new theories of evolution inspired by humans. Rylva felt a warm pride rise in her chest. She had not only defended a controversial claim, but had also reshaped how the galaxy viewed humanity. After the debate, many scientists approached her. An emotion researcher said, your report changes everything we know about reproductive biology. I never imagined a species could integrate choice into their natural systems. A Volari avian added, humans are not just survivors. They are innovators of life itself. Even the skeptical Carthon insectoids approached, offering cautious admiration. One muttered, perhaps we have underestimated freedom as a strategy. Rylva smiled at Ethan. They finally understand. Ethan shrugged. They might, Or they might just be impressed that a little human stubbornness can prove a point. She laughed softly. Stubbornness is a gift of evolution, it seems. That night, Rilva returned to her dorm with a sense of accomplishment. Her report was finalized, her presentation delivered, and her place in the galactic academic community secure. But more importantly, she had gained understanding. Humans were not simply biologically unusual. They were extraordinary because they chose their path, adapted without limits, and combined intellect, emotion, and biology in perfect balance. Ethan joined her on the balcony, gazing at the stars above. "So," he said, "think you'll miss humans when you go back to Tau Ceti?" Rilva looked at him thoughtfully. "I will. I've learned more from your species than from any text or lecture. Humans are remarkable." Ethan grinned. "I think you just gave them a title they deserve. Tireless, unstoppable, and always surprising." She nodded. "Yes, tireless indeed. And this is only the beginning." With that thought, Rilva felt a surge of excitement. Humanity's story was far from over, and she would continue to study, observe, and learn. For the galaxy, humans were not just another species. They were a lesson in resilience, choice, and boundless potential. The days after the Galactic Science Conference were unlike any Rilva had experienced in her academic life. Messages poured in from alien scientists across the galaxy, praising her research and asking for copies of her data. Her work had not only validated humanity's unique biology, but had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of what a species could achieve. For Rilva, the most exciting part was watching humans, especially Ethan Clarke, be celebrated indirectly for something they had never thought of as extraordinary. Humans simply lived, adapted, and chose their paths. That choice, she realized, was their greatest strength. Back at the Galactic University Earth branch, Rilva and Ethan walked through the campus garden. Students of all species were engaged in various activities, some floating in zero-gravity study pods, others practicing alien martial arts, and humans, as always, laughing, running, or working together on projects. Rilva's 4 eyes scanned the scene. "Ethan," she said softly, "I have never seen a species like yours. Even after months of observation, I continue to discover new ways in which humans surpass all expectations." Ethan shrugged modestly. "We just try to live our lives. We don't think too much about being special." "That," Rilva said, "is what makes you special." He laughed, shaking his head. "You Tau Ceti people are dramatic," she smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But observation is my duty, and truth cannot be ignored." The university organized a special symposium to officially honor Rilva's work. Delegates from dozens of worlds attended. Holograms displayed charts of human adaptability, colonization patterns, and population studies. Each slide emphasized how humans combined biological potential with intellect, emotion, and social organization. Rilva spoke with clarity and pride. "Humans are not bound by instinct alone. They use intellect to regulate themselves, emotion to guide their decisions, and creativity to overcome challenges. Their continuous fertility is a biological reflection of this principle." The audience listened in awe. Many alien species had never considered that freedom of choice could be as powerful as natural cycles. One Zorathian elder hissed thoughtfully, "Perhaps we have underestimated the power of self-direction." "Intelligence and adaptability. Yes, that can drive survival more than instinct," a Valari avian researcher added. "Freedom combined with discipline of mind is indeed a force of evolution." Even the Carthon insectoids, once skeptical, nodded quietly. "Humans are remarkable." That evening, Rilva and Ethan sat on a quiet hill overlooking the university. Stars stretched infinitely across the sky, and the soft glow of distant worlds shimmered in the darkness. "You know," Ethan said, "humans don't usually get recognized like this. We work, we learn, we survive, but we never expect the galaxy to notice." Rilva nodded. "That humility is part of your greatness. Your species' success is not just in biology or technology. It is in spirit, courage, and choice." Ethan looked at her curiously. "Do you think other species can do what humans do?" "Some may adapt," Rilva said slowly. "But the combination of constant potential, conscious regulation, and emotional intelligence, that is unique. Humans are truly tireless," he smiled. "I guess that's a compliment coming from an alien observer." She tilted her head. It is more than a compliment. It is recognition of a species that reshapes what is possible across the stars. Days later, Rilva completed her final report. She included every detail: biological data, medical scans, interviews, social observations, and analysis of human colonies across different planets. She highlighted how humanity's continuous fertility, coupled with intelligence and social structure, had allowed them to colonize worlds that other species could not. Her final conclusion read, "Humans do not merely survive, they thrive." Their continuous fertility symbolizes adaptability, resilience, and relentless creativity. They act as a model for how intellect and choice can guide biological potential, ensuring both survival and progress. The report was sent to the Galactic Council and published across multiple scientific databases. Within weeks, humans gained a new nickname in the galaxy, the tireless species. It was both humorous and respectful, a recognition that humans never waited for nature, circumstances, or cycles. They created their own destiny. Rilva prepared for her return journey to Tau Ceti Prime. She packed her notes, memories, and most importantly, the lessons she had learned about humans. Her mind replayed months of observation, laughter echoing through dorms, humans building communities in deserts and icy moons, their playful energy, their quiet determination. Ethan helped her carry the last of her equipment to the shuttle. "So back to your world," he said. "Yes," Rilva replied, her voice soft. "But I take a part of humanity with me. Your species has taught me that life is not only biology, it is will, choice, and spirit." Ethan laughed gently. "Not bad for a Tau Cetian. Sounds almost poetic." Rilva gave a small trill, her version of a laugh. "Perhaps I am inspired." Before departure, she visited Professor Lin one last time. The human biologist smiled warmly. "You've done well, Rilva," Lin said. "Humans may not always understand themselves, but you have captured their essence." "I have learned more than I could imagine," Rilva replied. "Their biology is remarkable, yes, but it is their mind and heart that truly define them." Professor Lin nodded. "That is why humans survive, adapt, and reach beyond their home planet. Biology alone is not enough. Choice, emotion, and intellect, that is the secret." Rilva recorded the words in her final report. Humans, survivors, innovators, tireless in spirit and action. As the shuttle lifted from Earth's surface, Rilva looked down at the blue planet shrinking below her. Humans moved about their daily lives, unaware that the galaxy had just witnessed their uniqueness. She thought about all the alien scholars she had met, skeptical, curious, and now admiring. Humanity's reputation had grown beyond Earth, beyond even the colonies on distant moons. And she smiled softly, realizing a profound truth. Humans were not merely a species. They were a lesson in possibility. For the galaxy, they were proof that biology alone did not define potential. Choice, courage, and creativity could surpass any natural limit. Weeks later, Rilva delivered a lecture at Tau Ceti Prime. She showed images of Earth, humans in their colonies, and graphs of their social and biological data. "Behold a species unlike any other," she said to her fellow Tau Cetians. "They remain fertile without a mating season, yes. But more importantly, they do not wait for nature to guide them. They act, they create, they adapt. They are tireless." The audience listened in awe. Some noted the humor in the nickname, the tireless species. But most understood the deeper message. Humans had achieved a balance of mind and body that no other species had. Rilva concluded her lecture, her heart swelling with pride. If the galaxy wishes to learn how to survive, expand, and thrive, it need only study humans. For they teach a simple yet powerful lesson. Potential is limitless when guided by choice. Back on Earth, Ethan watched the news report about Rilva's lecture on Tau Ceti. He laughed and shook his head. "So humans are famous in another galaxy now?" "Looks like it," said a friend nearby. Ethan smiled. "I guess we really are tireless." And indeed, humans continued their lives, working, learning, creating, and exploring. They laughed, they stumbled, they made mistakes, and they tried again. But through it all, they moved forward, never waiting for the universe to tell them when to act. For the galaxy, they became an inspiration, a model of HFY spirit, resilience, and endless potential. Rilva thought about them often in the years that followed. They had changed her understanding of life itself. She realized that humans were not only remarkable because of their biology, they were remarkable because they had the courage to define their own destiny. And somewhere, among the stars, humanity's story continued, tireless, unstoppable, and inspiring every species that dared to watch, learn, and admire.